I mean, clearly, who saved a situation? They chased away bandits, and when they were returning back to their homes, the airstrike happened. Who informed the military or the army to throw bombs? And how can you just wake up and you think that the only way you can chase away bandits is to be throwing bombs? Things must change in Africa. Every now and then story comes out, and when you go even deeper, this may just be, I mean, an under number that is given. More people probably would have been killed through these strikes, and I think it is time for Africa to learn. Human beings' lives are not just like fowls, where someone will just wake up, the next thing the person do is to claim a life, and the next thing the government will come out to defend you or protect you. And most of the time when military are involved in all these crimes, they are protected by governments and nothing happened to them. And when nothing happened, at the end of the day, it emboldens them to do more. And next time when they get the opportunity, they commit more crimes in a country. And bless, my condolences to the family of these young people who are killed in the airstrike. But I think Africa must learn at a point. And if we fail to pick our lessons, one day when civilians feel that they are killed like fowls every now and then and take the laws into their hands, the countries will become ungovernable. And especially in Africa, we must take lessons and learn, and to move away from, you know, using force to always solve our problems.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Feta. Dr. Kisi, let's hear from you, sir.
Let me take the opportunity to also say a Happy New Year to all of our viewers, and more importantly, my constituents, Anya Sotum. Now, with regards to this issue of, let me say, extreme use of military force, or even in some jurisdictions, sometimes I would say police brutality. I must admit, we've seen the shows and the issues in the Americas with regards to police brutality. We've seen the uproar when you know, the new thing of Black Lives Matter came up. There are many instances where you know, there's one painful scenario where a young man rather called the police and he was rather shot and killed. He was telling the police that he has an intruder in his house, you know. So I not to necessarily buttress or you know, add to what Doctor said, but I'm just putting it in perspective that these issues do happen, and an extension of it is this military mishap. And I know that even within the Israel-Gaza issues, it's even more. But it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. And I think that our sense of duty to the ordinary man should be very important. And for that matter, I always think that it's important that though you have the weapons, that you ensure that you exercise restraint in you know, dishing out heavy weaponry, and that is very much something that we need to be very mindful of, one as a nation in this country, and then the entire African sub-region. I think that over the past 3 weeks, I've realized that the Nigerian military is a bit more proactive now. I'm hearing more pockets or stories related to military action in Nigeria, which goes to show that either their attempt to reduce the influence of Boko Haram is on the rise, or they are being more formidable now. I think I saw the weaponry that the new president has empowered them with, which might be making them too excited to use the weapons that they have. But be it as it may, I think that overall, security is costly, and what we call victims of circumstances, though not the best from a human rights standpoint, but I think that invariably these are casualties that sometimes can really mar the goodwill that people have for military, and I see this as a classic case that requires some civilian actions against the military. And at this point, though the lives have been lost, I'm hoping that the appropriate compensation is given the family members, so that they can at least console themselves with the as it is remuneration or compensation from this military action, and that is what, as it stands now, we can't bring those lives back.
Okay.
But we can at least do something that is appropriate, and then also reprimand the officers who took the decision or court-martialed them. And I think that those are the things that I want to see. And when I say court-martial, the benefit of the court-martial process is the fact that appropriate investigation will go into determining if these officers acted based on the information they had, and was the information appropriate, and where were the mistakes, and who was at fault. And the military attitude of military man, don't know questions, just act. That also is there, which needs to be changed. This time, military is not you don't know questions. Military is questioning and making sure that your actions are right. The old ideologies of military, shoot first or shoot to kill before questioning. I think we've now moved away from that, and military takes action based on very appropriate
intelligence.
Yeah. So and to end, I think that aspect of military work is very fascinating. The intelligence bureau of the military, which are almost appearing to be non-existent in Africa, or shall I say in Ghana. We need to beef it up to really improve our security. And I'm hoping that this shouldn't repeat, and the appropriate measures will be taken.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Kisi. Mr. Sylvie.
Okay, so I will start by first expressing or sending my sincere condolence to the victims. Listen, I think we all know that the core mandate of the military is to protect civilian lives and properties, and rather fight against our enemies, possibly on our borders or any jurisdiction that we feel threatened us as a continent. And so if it so happens that the same military, which is there to protect civilian lives, end up engaging in activities or actions that is detrimental to the very lives that they are supposed to protect, then it's more or less a problem. And just as my colleagues have said, this is an operational failure. The question is, what intelligence were gathered? Who gathered the intelligence? And when the intelligence came in the form of data, what form of analysis or what kind of analysis was actually conducted to ascertain the scope of activities that ought to be undertaken as far as the operation is concerned? did they even consider that jurisdiction or that enclave where they suspected this resurgence or vigilante people being occupied, did they actually did a bit of mapping to know how many civilians are within that enclave, and what can be done to ensure that the operation is undertaken in such a way that the lives and properties of these civilians are actually protected? So the military in this day and age have to be more scientific in their act. As my colleague said, gone are the days obey before complain. This time we need to be more kind of civilian oriented, or in marketing people will say marketing oriented. The point is that your actions as a military should inure to the benefit of the civilian that you are actually recruited to protect. And it's also common in Ghana, though it is in Nigeria. If you look at the just ended elections, you could see that some minor issues that could have been, just the presence of the military, if they were supposed to be, there in the first place, or the police could have, in a more civilized way handle it. You will see them, shooting here and there, and we have experienced, a number of casualties in terms of deaths or loss of lives in the past 2 elections that we've had. So I will end by saying that proper investigation ought to be undertaken. Who gave the command, and based on what intelligence did he or she use to actually give that particular command, and was there a bit of feasibility study within the enclave to actually ascertain what will actually happen, or how civilians were going to be affected. And then the people who ought to be punished are punished accordingly. This investigation should not be held or be conducted by the military themselves. I think they should have a non-partisan, non-military kind of, or impartial kind of body to be able to to do this sort of investigation, and then also seek to compensate the families and the victims of these this particular act, and ensure that their normal livelihoods are restored, just so people don't become a long-term kind of victim suffering without any attention from the authorities. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Once again, the text line very, very active. Make sure you do send me your messages on WhatsApp and normal text. I'll be more than pleased to read them in the course of the show. Still to come, Finance Minister designate promises economic relief, e-levy betting tax to go. Government will explore private participation in ECG. This is according to Minister designate for Energy John Abdullahi Jinapo, and then Kufado secondary statue raised down. These are the 3 topics, the 3 Ghanaian topics that we shall be discussing next, but we'll focus our attention on the story about the finance minister designate. Yesterday he was being vetted by the appointment committee, and a lot of issues came up in relation to some promises the current administration made in the run-up to the December 7 polls. Remember, President John Dramani Mahama, then the candidate for the NDC, he promised to remove some nuisance taxes like betting tax, the e-levy. Well, the finance minister designate has reiterated that stance, and according to him, the betting tax, for instance, is not raking in so much, e-levy is not raking in so much, and so he believes that these taxes have to go. I remember somewhere last week when Dr. Admal Kisi was here, he was very critical about the this new administration and their stance on the taxes that they promised to repeal, should they be given the nod. Now they have been given the nod, and of course Dr. Kiselato Forsen has reiterated that stance of government. Let me hear from you, Dr. Kisi. At least something is being done, something that you think should be done is being done.
There's 2 things. Let me first of all commend the nomination of Ato Forsen. I think it's appropriate based on his workings in Parliament, and then his experience and his capabilities, and the fact that he's worked in the finance committee for a while. I think that my truest challenge, and this is very non-partisan, worldwide, people pay taxes to improve the livelihood of all of us. And what I mean by that is that we pay taxes in any country to improve health, to improve infrastructure, and then in totality for social amenities. Unfortunately, there's a culture in this country, whether we like it or not, that many of us prefer not to pay for what we think is due us. And I think that ought to change. That ought to change from all of us, in the sense that there are no free meals. That's economics 101. Whatever you think that you are enjoying for free, somebody somewhere is paying for it. So I'm of the opinion that all of us, if we truly wish for development of this country and we want to stand by it in a very patriotic way, then many Ghanaians should be more inclined and willing to pay taxes. And that also brings the other part, which is show us how the taxes are used. And I believe that if we do what is right and allow for people to truly understand and appreciate what our tax monies are used for, some seemingly nuisance taxes will not be nuisance anymore. Now, taxes are also used to change behavior, and I can cite, for instance, in some jurisdiction, cigarette taxes are used to help curb the urge to smoke, in the sense that when you come to your senses and you are really looking at how much tax you are paying because of every puff, you would be a bit more reluctant to smoke so much. Or in other jurisdictions, alcohol intake is billed with some level of tax for revenue generation by the government. Now, coming to e-levy or betting tax, from a Las Vegas standpoint, some tax in betting is very useful, and I mean this in the sense that when you go to Las Vegas, the lights are on. When you go to Las Vegas, there are huge investments in terms of hotels and places of fantastic sight viewing, and that is largely due to the revenue from taxation on gambling. So I wouldn't be very quick to say that the entire betting tax should be scrapped. I am of the opinion that some level of taxation in betting, like any other activity, is acceptable. When you go and watch soccer and you buy a ticket to go and watch, there's a little bit of tax in there, and it's used largely to also help with the stadium infrastructure or building, or the roads that lead to the stadium, or even to finance players who go and play for this country. So to have an idea, and I wish Castle Forson the best, but I think that the narrative ought to be carefully managed, in the sense that betting tax certainly should be reduced, but not entirely scrapped, because I foresee a huge challenge in the future. Just as we did away with tolls, and at the time I said it was wrong, it's the same thing I'm saying today, that removal of the entire betting tax would not be to the benefit of even those who play. Because let me tell you on authority that the cables that run and improve the speed with which they play their betting largely infrastructural or technological investment that this country is making. India is on the verge of doing 6G, and the speed of internet in India necessarily is not equal to the speed of internet in Ghana. And mind you, even when you go to England, there are two bands. You either pay for high speed band or you pay for low speed band. So certainly there's first class in internet speed and the second class in internet speed. So if you're a serious betting organization, you would invest in high speed internet so that you can do your betting quick, you can make your calls in that. So I'm only preaching to serious bettors that if you are not willing to pay for the infrastructure that would enhance your betting experience, then you would not enjoy your betting experience. So I would recommend that the entire scrapping of betting tax wouldn't be beneficial to all of us. I don't bet, but those who bet can bet their last money on what I'm telling them, that to really enhance their betting experience in terms of the technology on the ground, the cables, the internet, it will be in their interest to pay a little so that the government can ensure that the highway for internet is very good, connectivity is very good, the towers are very good, and that is my 2 cents on sports betting. And I should not be mistaken. I'm saying that reduce it, do not scrap it. Reduce it, do not remove it entirely, because the reintroduction will be also difficult. And in all, I've asked myself numerous questions. Why do we pay so much taxes at the port? Unfortunately, it is one of the efficient way for government to claim taxes. So that efficiency has driven government to rather nip all of us at the port. If there were efficient property tax payment in this country, I can tell you that half of the taxes we pay at the port will be reduced. But it so happens that we do not have very efficient property tax system. Some have many reasons. The cabals that do not want it to happen are plenty. And if we really want to be doing the appropriate thing, then we will make other tax collection or government revenue mobilization spots more efficient, so that when you are parking, you are paying appropriate taxes. When you are doing anything in your local government setting, you are paying appropriate taxes. Then
I mean here, it's if you own a gun and you want to go and renew your license, you pay 12 cedis, which for me, I don't understand. You have the luxury of using a firearm, and to renew you pay as little as 12 Ghana cedis. I mean, that beats me.
So that comes to a lot of things that I think that, unfortunately, if we truly want to develop as a nation, then we need to pay for what we want. You can't want good roads and you're not willing to pay. You can't want good quality drinking water. And these are fundamental, but more importantly, and I would hope that today I can convince Dr. Fatah, or was it Fita, that, listen, I'm a very realistic guy, very realistic, and I also do politics, and I want to be very firm and blunt with you. When my party scrapped the tolls, I was one of the very first to say that this is wrong, and I'm going to be on the same principle to tell Castle Atuforsen and the NDC fraternity that, listen, in all honesty, it's a very popularist thing to state that you scrap sports betting tax, but looking at the revenues and the quantum of money that sports betting is making, it would be very wrong for any government to say that we'll leave them to their own mercy. They should rake in all the monies they want, and that we will not take a little bit of that to buy hypertension medication, to buy malaria medication, or to help those who do not have. So I'm of the opinion that, one, it is in the interest of bettors to give government some money to improve on the cables in this country, so that the same internet that they are using to bet will be of high speed. Okay? And then even the networks that they use will be much upgraded. And that one, other people who use internet will also benefit. You understand? So that is my thought, that scrapping it in its entirety
it's not the way to go. But Dr. Kisara Atuforsen has indicated that he is going to ensure tax compliance. He's not going to introduce new taxes, and so I had a fear that they'll be robbing Peter to pay Paul by abolishing some of the taxes and then attempt to reintroduce or attempt to introduce new ones. Now, what he's saying is that he's not going to introduce new taxes, but he's going to increase tax to GDP from 13.8% to 16 to 18% in the medium term. How is he going to do that? He's going to ensure tax compliance, and by so doing, he doesn't even have to introduce new taxes at all. You think that is not possible?
Listen, let me borrow from our experience. Unless John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, intends to not do anything new in this country, if he intends to do something in terms of infrastructure, do something in terms of human capital investment, then looking at our indebtedness, and mind you, we've not been paying foreign debt for some time.
Yes.
I'm not going to say who caused some, but my point is that the reality now is that we're not good in terms of our credit rating, and this is largely due to the whether you'd say excessive borrowing or huge projects that we as a country, they don't have enough money to fund them. So where we are, and that's why I'm saying that unless if the president intends to maintain the status quo, reduce capital investments, then you can tell me that you don't need another tax handle or another revenue mobilization opportunity, and that you're going to just be efficient. Now, efficiency in Ghana has a level of tax appreciation, and to move from those values, I'm just going to stick to the raw thing. He's talking about 4% or 3% improvement,
yes,
solely due to efficiency. That one I would say all be lie. All be lie, because in reality it will be very difficult, because if you're going to reduce your port taxes, which has also been said, because I listened carefully to Mahama when he was reading the items on car import. And I know that by virtue of him reading that, he knows that people will be watching. If I import a Toyota Yaris, how much am I paying? If I import a Jaguar, how much am I? People are watching. So if you're going to be reducing that efficient tax collection unit, and then reduce e-levy, or remove e-levy, and then remove betting tax, my goodness, that reduces your possibility for enhancing your tax revenue. And I can tell Castle Atuforsen that all be lie. I'm just being as real
according to the Ghana Revenue Authority, I think some 2 years ago they brought out that only about 10% of Ghanaians pay tax, and even that 10%, that 9% is coming from the Greater Accra region. It means that there are lots of people who are supposed to be paying tax and they are not paying. Do you not think that the compliance bits that KCL Atuforsen is talking about, when properly implemented, will see the tax net widened and more people pay?
Well, I wish him well on that journey, but I'm looking at historically what has happened in this country, and I can tell you that in reality, let's be real, I was hit hard by being realist in my own party, and I'll continue to be a realist. And this one is not about being NDC, MPP. I'm just being as real as it is. That in the next 4 years, now even let me say less than 4 years, listen, already we are below the acceptable range of tax payment. I mean, and I can cite one of the reasons why I don't like living in Europe, in the sense that a good chunk of your earnings goes back to the government, and that one, when our people go there, they are okay with it. People pay as high as 30% income tax, which I think is ridiculous, and live in a chop box. I mean, those are the reasons why I don't live in Europe, and that is my reason. That you're using 40% of your earnings to develop a country that is not your country, and hence I'll live in my Ghana. So accept, one thing is very clear, and any academic who is serious has to admit that, listen, we as Ghanaians are paying little for what we want. And if we want to drink good water, if we want to have very good health facilities, and then ensure that our health workers are paid well enough so that they don't leave the shores of this country, then I'm telling you that, listen, rather maybe do better PR and explain to the people why these taxes are happening, and then show them that you as the authority to manage the taxes will not be exorbitant in your lifestyle. And when people appreciate that, what happened to Trudeau in Canada, where even his flight with his family, they asked him, where is the petrol money? When we get there, then all of us, the Sylphies and everybody would want to pay, because when I pay, I know that government cars are packed on Friday, and nobody will be going to their funeral or weddings with government cars. You understand? Because that is my tax money. When we learn to appreciate these things, and then we as Ghanaians demand from politicians that, let's say, you can't go to a funeral and dole out tax money to somebody's funeral. We should be very modest in the funerals we do in this country, or shall I say outdoorings and engagements. And people would hate me for this, but those who have money don't spend as much on weddings as we do as Ghanaians. And I can tell you, in places I've been, they'll put that money towards a house and not an extravagant wedding. And that's why our mindset needs to change. And I am pleading, based on our experience as a party with removal of the tolls, I'm pleading that if you truly wish to improve on this country's development, scrapping all these taxes would not be. I mean, it's good for campaigning, but now you're doing government work.
No, but you can't tell us you do something and then once we've given you the nod, you come and do otherwise.
No,
it's good for campaigning, but you have to implement your campaign campaign promises.
Yes, but then listen, I believe in contingencies. If you are a military guy and you say that you are going to Boko tomorrow to do this, and you get there, and it so happens that if you drink water with the two parties, it will change everything. You change. So that is, and let me be very frank with Ghanaians. Mahama has nothing to lose, really. This is one term, and unless something extraordinary happens, he's not going to come back to us for a nod. He's not. So he has every opportunity to do it right, and to feel free and tell Ghanaians boldly that, listen, ECG, electricity, all of these things, and it is coming up every day. When I hear him, he's telling us that, Charlie, it's not that easy. I would have wished that it was, but what he's come to meet, if maybe the mess he thought was 10%, maybe he feels that it is 20-something% now. So to solve these things, I would hesitate. And I can almost tell the NDC that, listen, enjoy 1 year of these taxes. Hold off. If you even intend to scrap them, maybe hold off for a year and do it 2026. And we told Leonardo Danko Father that the free senior high school, fantastic, but let's wait for a year and get started. But what happened? We started. We then also removed tax handlers, quote unquote, KIA taxes and all these things. And in the mathematics of it, it was bad for governance, in the sense that you remove tax revenues and then you introduce a heavy expenditure item. No accounting firm would agree to this, and no politically correct mindset will agree to this.
Right.
And Ghana has suffered from that. You and I have suffered. Our children were not fed well, and those are the realities. So I think that, listen, delaying even the scrapping or the reduction for a year is in order. And that does not mean that he's not being truthful to Ghanaians. It is, one, tied to the IMF arrangement, which we are not off, and I think that abrogating these commitments are also injurious to the country. And he can come and just lay it out, and I will be in support. The MPP will then say that, oh, listen, the delaying for a year is apt. It is in the interest.
The MPP say that.
It is in the interest of the Ghanaians.
Well, John Dramani Mahama promised to scrap these taxes in his first 120 days. That means by
youthful exuberance.
April 7 of this year, we should see the back of these taxes. He can't come and tell us any differently.
He'll be stubborn himself.
He can't come and tell us any differently. But let me come to you, Dr. Seydou Fita. Yes. But before that, I have a number of messages. I think that it's important that I read a few of the messages that I have received. Right. Abdul Fattah says, my great communication officer, Dr. Seydou Fita, good morning to you. Tia Idrisu says, good morning, sir. Please, I'm watching live from Sagnarigo, Tolon constituency. Sanarigo, Yepelgu, Tolon constituency. Greet Dr. Seydou Fita for me. I'm a branch youth organizer at the Yepelgu, Tolon district. Okay. Julie Belinda Obri says, Master, your former boss also promised to cancel the e-levy. What has changed? Musa Abatra says, I was truly overwhelmed by the responses of the finance minister designate Dr. Atoforsen. His commitment to abolishing the e-levy and betting tax speaks volumes about his understanding of the struggles ordinary Ghanaians face. These taxes introduced by the Kufuor and Bawumia regime have been nothing but a means of stealing from the pockets of hardworking citizens. Abu Kari Ahmed says, good morning, I'm watching you live from Nyentua. Extend my greetings to Honorable Hadi Pagaza and Hajia Sajida. Dr. Said Ufita is doing fantastic. I'm really enjoying your time. Keep it up. May Allah bless you. Abu Kari Ahmed, Gunu Nyentua. Thank you, Abu Kari. Of course, he does have fans. Charles Graham says, is the efficient collection and management of our taxes that matter. Endemic corruption is what is killing us as a people. Also, let our politicians and their appendages live modestly. Politicians and even cabinet members use public transport in the UK. So why can't we implement something similar in a desperately poor country as Ghana? Charles Graham, thank you very much for your message. Seidu John Paul is doing the watching. Many thanks to you, Seidu. William Monday Jikunu says, good morning, bless you are doing well, keep it up, thank you very much. Lukman Nat says, good morning to you and your panel, bless, especially my very good friend and brother Dr. Seidu Fita. He has fans. The finance minister designate has made bold promises to address Ghana's economic challenges. The minister vows to provide economic relief to Ghanaians by abolishing the controversial e-levy, a tax on electronic transactions. Additionally, the minister plans to scrap the betting tax, which has been a source of frustration for many. This move could ease the financial burden on citizens and stimulate economic growth. As part of efforts to reset the Ghanaian economy, the minister also plans to remove the e-levy and betting tax and rationalize fees charged at ports by replacing them with toll duties. This could be a game changer. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so these are some of your messages. Keep them coming. Dr. Seidu Fita, the betting tax for me, I know Dr. Kisi begs to differ, but the betting tax especially is non-negotiable, and I can say on authority that it is one of the reasons the NPP lost the election. Maybe they do not know, but a chunk of the youth have resorted to betting as a means of livelihood. Okay, and this is how it works. I know how it works. This is how it works. So for instance, you place a bet of say 100 Ghana cedis on a football match. Let's say your winnings will be 1,000 cedis. Okay, now what happens is that when you lose that bet, you've lost everything.
Right.
When you bet again, let's say you bet another 100 Ghana cedis and you are supposed to win, let's say 500 cedis, or let's say you are supposed to win 500 cedis. Now, because you lost the first 100 Ghana cedis, what government has done is that they are not going to charge you the 10% for your next winning, provided it does not. I think I'm not explaining. I'm not explaining it correctly. So let's say you've won 500 Ghana cedis. What happens is that they are not going to charge you 10% of 500 Ghana cedis. They are only going to charge you 10% of 400 Ghana cedis, because they've deducted that first 100 Ghana cedis you lost out of your new 500 Ghana cedis winning. However, if you bet again, and let's say you've betted say around this time around you did 500 Ghana cedis, right, and you lost. You've lost everything. You are not going to get anything from government that because you let's say you place the bet of 500 Ghana cedis, you lost all of it, you just take 10% of it. No. But once you win, you are being deducted for that, and the boys think it's unfair. See, there are scenarios where people arrange their bets, and because of that 10%, they are compelled to add, let's say, some other teams, so that it will increase the odd. And so once that 10% is deducted from it, they don't feel it. Once you add that team could be your kryptonite. That team could be the team that loses, and then you've lost your. So it's something that really upset. I am very surprised the SWAL NPP administration introduced that tax, especially for people, for a youthful population who have resorted to that as a means of livelihood. If you had the money anyway to fend for yourself, there's no way you'll be going into betting, but you don't have it, and you are betting, and then government is charging you for that. As for me, I think that was, a shoot in the foot of the NPP. I think that That's why they lost. But I mean, Dr. Kisi has raised his own objections with this tax. You do believe that widening the tax net would improve our taxes?
Full bless. I don't know why you are struggling to even explain this to us. Nobody takes interest in engaging in something that is addictive. For example, betting, alcohol, smoking, etc.
But we asked for alcohol and stuff.
I'll get there. I'll get there. I will make my point very clear for you to understand. You can't take Nana Akufo-Addo out of the equation of NPP as a founding member of the party. Nana Akufo-Addo. And this is a man who led a charge in 1995 against taxing in this country. Bless. Nana Akufo-Addo. That led to even the death of some civilians or citizens of this country. He didn't just want to hear the name tax. Not at all. And it surprised me when he became a president. His taste and joy in imposing taxes on ordinary but suffering Ghanaians was on a high. I watched Councillor Atufor's doctor yesterday, and I was so happy and proud that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama have the men who can lead the charge for him. And in fact, all the taxes he mentioned, the nuisance taxes that he mentioned that we're going to scrap off, was the way to go. Now, first of all, let me remind you, Doctor, we don't need betting tax to build infrastructure, not only betting tax. And did I remind you that Northern Region got its first electricity under Rawlings without betting tax or COVID taxes. One of the massive projects ever in the history of Ghana is to construct roads from the Bono region to Paga. Rawlings didn't do it with betting tax or COVID tax. Let's cut it. John Dramani Mahama gave Koku market, KJTR, one of the beautiful markets in Africa, without betting tax. He gave us that. Without COVID tax. He gave us a circle interchange without COVID tax.
Could he have done more?
I mean, his worst is the best of Nana Akufo-Addo. So let's consider that he didn't have them, but he did his best. MPP came and lowered the standard, respectfully. And that is why you got this number ever in the history of Ghana politics. I mean, how can MPP go to the polls and come out with this less minority with around 38 or 41% in an election? It tells you how Ghanaians were angry at you. How can you cause unemployment? And when the youth are trying to find a way to stand by betting, you come to tax them in that enterprise also. Doctor was mentioning, he was referring to taxes of, for example, smoking cigarette and all, to discourage people. Yes, we call it sin taxes, or refer to it as sin taxes when it comes to health. And that is done to, first of all, discourage people from smoking and drinking, number one. And two, to raise money in case the conditions of those people are getting terrible. You use it to take care of them, for example, buy medications at the hospital, etc. So we refer to them as sin taxes. Those ones, nobody is against them. But I am saying that a party that has ever organized the biggest and notorious demonstration in Ghana because of taxes lack the moral right to advise us on taxes. And let me add that John Dramani Mahama gave us Terminal 3 without betting taxes, without COVID taxes, and without e-levy. Bless. Tolls are paid by, in quote, rich people. That is why people who ride bicycles or walk don't pay tolls. They are paid by people who drive vehicles. And it is assumed, not even an assumption, if you don't have money, you can buy a car, though it is a necessity. So even abolishing toll taxes was even a wrong foot to take in the first place. Now, Bless. COVID, it came to claim lives of people across the world. It started in China. China didn't impose COVID taxes on their citizens. People are dying to a condition, and wickedly we are taxing them on their debts. What went into the thinking and introduction of COVID taxes on citizens of Ghana? And at a point, when we started opening our borders, airports and schools, we claimed that COVID had gone. So why are we still taxing people for COVID? Nobody could answer, and the president was not ready to listen to anyone. You collapsed banks. You collapsed banks in this country, and young men who dressed up neatly in the morning to go to bank to make money to provide food for the family, they return home jobless, and thinking around to get their way out, they resorted to betting. Believe me, many are young guys out there who are betting, and they don't pride themselves for betting. They are not happy for betting, but at least they must put food on the table. They have gotten into this enterprise. You have followed them there. Those you collapse bank and cause unemployment to their families, you follow them into that enterprise again to tax them. Now, e-levy. I'm a public servant, and 30% of my salary is used to pay taxes, and nothing to show for 8 years that I have paid my taxes to Nana Akufo-Addo. No improvement in life, and unemployment is also on a rise. I pick my salary and I pay taxes. I save the money on my wallet to transfer some to my mother in the village, and I pay another tax. Double taxing and nothing to show. And when I want to speak against it, you tell me to shut up and leave Ghana even if I want. This is the pain a party has caused us for 8 solid years. And bless, a good man like Honorable Kisi shouldn't have exited parliament if not for the sins of Nana Akufo-Addo and those unnecessary taxes. Clearly, we all know he's a good man, but the vehicle that brought him to power or to office, and the leader of that vehicle or the driver of that vehicle is Nana Akufo-Addo, who cost him and many of his good colleagues in parliament. These taxes are nuisance. These taxes are unnecessary. Now look, to advise His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to take a stance, for example, you have one term, and for that matter, be solid on your grounds to say that no, I will not scrap betting or e-levy taxes because I promised it. It's a bad advice in the first place to offer, and it will be terrible for John Dramani Mahama to take this advice. You know why? John Mahama used a vehicle to power. He didn't come as independent presidential candidate. He used a vehicle called the NDC. Number 2, Mahama is an honest person. This is someone on the edge of a sword of losing an election. He removed allowances at the training colleges, and when he was pushed to bring it back, he said he would prefer to lose an election honorably than bringing it back to look like an inconsistent person just pushing for power. Why was Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia also campaigning that when he get the nod as president of the Republic of Ghana, he will scrap e-levy? Because he realized that e-levy was one of the biggest sins in Ghana. Ghanaian citizens, and I want to offer this advice, and to myself, Honorable Kisi and Doctor, when you go to parliament, don't be so arrogant to feel that you went there on your own. Ordinary Ghanaians voted for you to go to parliament. When you go to take decisions, come back to us and ask us questions. Don't take a decision based on Nanado or the leader of your party. Nanado didn't bring you to parliament. I sent you to parliament, and I'm telling you that e-levy is terrible for me. Even if you want to impose it on me forcefully, come back, let us talk, let us reach a consensus before you go back to parliament. You went there and you were even fighting the NDC, throwing chairs just to impose this on us. Sleepless night to impose it on poor people. You can imagine the terrible, I mean, 4 years we would have gone through again if Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia accidentally had gotten the nod to lead Ghana. Accidentally had gotten the nod to lead Ghana as president of the country. Someone who, very inconsistent, who was part of the designing of e-levy, according to
elections, no campaign.
I mean, we are not campaigning. We cannot easily forget your sins. We have to remind you, so that anyone who is coming through your vehicle next time will learn their lessons. I'm saying, for example, based on your personal character, you would have gone back to parliament, but your vehicle cost you.
Agreed.
I mean, you sat here and you just mentioned, I mean, you just stated that you were against the scrapping of the tolls.
Right.
They failed to listen to you. Your vehicle said no, led by Nana Akufo-Addo, the most terrible president Ghana would ever witness in our history. And I've continually said that Nana Addo continually contested for presidency of Ghana to satisfy his childhood fantasies. One of the worst mistake Ghana has ever made was to make Nana Akufo-Addo the president of Ghana. E-levy should be scrapped. Betting tax should be scrapped. We can only encourage the youth when you make jobs available. Who would want to waste time? Betting is not easy.
Oh, yes.
Bless. It's a stressful adventure for our young guys. Which young man? I probably can sit here and beat my chest, and I know my parents will be proud if I beat my chest and say I am an assistant lecturer born by Mahama Fita. But my parents will not be proud for me to beat my chest openly and say I am betting. Nobody proudly, even those who bet, sometimes when you sit close to them, they try to hide their phones. They don't want you to know. But at the end of the day, what is important is that you satisfy your stomach and that of your family. And that is why people get into this adventure. When we provide more jobs, when we provide more opportunities, young people with time will exit from betting. Introducing tolls. I mean, he told the vetting committee that he mentioned to them that he will introduce the tolls. We were not only making money out of tolls. Again, we took people from the streets, from begging. People living with disabilities. Most of those who are on our streets, it's just unfortunate that recently begging has become an enterprise or a business for some people, where you see men of good strength standing by the roadside begging. But in the past, people who live with, people living with disabilities, with all due respect, were those who feel that, look, I cannot do any other job. The only thing I can do is to beg. The NDC, in the wisdom of John Dramani Mahama, before we exited power, restricted those workers to people living with disability. The NPP, when they were scrapping it, they sent all these people back to their homes. They sent them back to the street. And when they went to demonstrate, you all know what they did to them. They pumped hot water on these people, injuring more of them. So John Dramani Mahama cannot make a promise. And people shouldn't think that we didn't know what we were promising Ghanaians. We knew. And we know where we are. Right. We left unemployment at 8.5%. Nana Akufo-Addo, with all these taxes, left with over 14% unemployment. So what did we use the taxes for? To buy votes. Before 7th of December, my constituency, my MP was sharing cloths, scarves, money, maggi, etc. just to win votes. Those are our taxes. The e-levy, the betting taxes, the COVID taxes. This is not the way to go. John Dramani Mahama, as an honest president, very firm man, he knows what he wants. He wants to see a better Ghana. We have to reset this country. The best way to go is to scrap the nuisance taxes. And I know when that is done, I want to pay taxes. I want to see more schools in my village. I want to drink potable water. And that is why I am not against paying taxes. When you check my payslip, you see I pay a lot of taxes. I don't question the government. But I cannot be paying double taxes or nuisance taxes when I don't see what my money is used for.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Seydou Fita. Let me come to Mr. Esilfi. So, Sophie,
Yes.
let me hear from you.
Yes, bless.
Are you in support of the abolition of the so-called nuisance taxes, e-levy, betting tax, some tax at the port, COVID-19 levy, and all these taxes?
I am in support. Bless.
Why is that?
Okay, so the whole situation, I mean, okay, let me start from this angle. In the Western world, my senior colleague was talking about or alluding to during his submission. If you look at the system, it is strategically designed to ensure that the upper class pay more in order to cushion the less privileged in the system. That is how it is designed. In Ghana, we have issues with tax targeting. Now, I feel so bad for MPP, and that is not to say I'm doing communication work for NDC, but I'm just trying to be factual here. The problem they had was lack of appreciation or use of data. Most of the decisions or policies that they put in place were not based on data. It was purely politically sentimental kind of policies that they put in place. Let's look at the social class of the people who are engaged in this particular betting taxes. If I'm not exaggerating, about 80 to 90% of them are street boys. These are people with very green energy, fresh energy, that if policies and programs are put in place, we could have channeled these energies into proper use for them to earn a decent livelihood. But for the fact that there is lack of adequate employment or unemployment, so to speak, in the system, high unemployment rate in the system, they had to engage in or try to look for a coping mechanism to survive. Now, the taxing over there, Honorable was saying that it is meant for infrastructure, and I agree with Doc. It's actually not the case. For example, the e-levy. In Parliament, the finance minister and the then majority leader categorically told Ghanaians or spelled out things that they were going to use the e-levy to do. By the time they left power, no single kind of dialogue or maybe kind of engagement with the public to tell us how the e-levy was being used, how much was actually collected, and for that matter what it is being used for. In fact, they even went ahead to tell us that it's going to create millions of jobs. I have a problem. Yesterday, Dr. Atufos and I want to congratulate him. He did very well, but I think the vetting committee didn't do, as far as I'm concerned, they didn't do a good job. Yes. Mostly because perhaps there were a lot of newbies in the system, and it's like the questions that people really did not research very, very well in order to grill, because Dr. Atufos and I know the questions that they were asking were far below him. So you could see that most of the answers that he was giving, he was not telling us enough. And that is why we are in this limbo in terms of disagreement or disagreeing with each other. If you look at the line of questioning that came, it really doesn't, or didn't push him to actually tell us how these things are going to be done. But let me be factual here. I have some bit of information on my phone here. If you look at, in terms of removing this e-levy and then the betting taxes, data is showing that Ghana is going to actually have a gap in terms of we need to find about 10 billion to support our budget. And people have heard some people saying that, oh, where are you going to get the money and what have you? Look, Dr. Tufosi made one point that which, even though Doc seems to agree, but I feel like it is a very strong point: efficiency and then tax compliance. I am a consultant. I am in the system. I pay tax, but I can tell you there are sectors that have done research as part of my consultancy jobs, and I realize that Ghanaians, when it comes to tax payment, there are a lot of loopholes. For example, the informal sector. About 90% of the tax that we collect in this country are on the people in the formal sector, particularly people in the public sector who earn because that one controller accountant general, it is the easy way out to get this mobilization, revenue mobilization from them. But as I speak to you, in this country, landlords and landladies are collecting rent for towers or offices, and there is no means of tracking to be able to collect taxes from them. So it is a lazy way of thinking of taxing a socioeconomic class that is actually struggling to find a coping mechanism just to survive or put bread on the table. Land sales and property sales, how do we track? As we are on set talking now, there are people in rooms and offices exchanging hard cash dollars with documents just to acquire properties. Some of them to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars and up to millions of dollars, and they hardly even sell it in cedis. And I'm telling you, because I've done a lot of studies in the real estate sector. Question is, what mechanisms are we going to put in place to ensure that we rake in all these areas into the tax basket or the revenue mobilization basket? Companies are understating profit just to dodge taxes. What are we doing to ensure that we get them on board? And apart from trying to bring in more people into the revenue mobilization basket or the tax basket, we should also look at the inefficiencies in government spending and what type of government expenditure government over the years have been taking or have been undertaking. For example, the past that gone MPP, one of the reasons they plunged the economy of Ghana into problem is that a greater part of their expenditure was purely based on consumption basis. And Doc, my colleague was right in mentioning one of them, the free SHS. Look, and I agree with him. I remember back in the days TV3 when it was being introduced, I had a debate with my colleague in University of Ghana about this non-targeting way of introducing free senior high school education and how, or the detrimental effect on the public purse. People have schooled. Doc is sitting, I'm sorry, my colleague is sitting right by me. Doc is also here. You can just ask them how many of
docs, by the way.
Oh, okay, and I'm also one of them. Just that I've not gone for my certificate yet. I will take it next month. But the point is that as they are sitting here, none of them have their kids in public schools.
How do you know?
Dr. Akisi, do you?
It's an assumption.
Do you?
So that is a good. That is a good question.
They're not old enough.
Do you?
Okay. So. Okay, he is asking how do I know? Let me just say, it may not be maybe a research fact, but the point is that as we speak now in Accra here, what is the accessibility level for public schools around us? Just take this particular area. How many public schools are here? It is actually occupied by a cluster of private schools, and some of them are highly expensive. I mean, for a child at KG or nursery, people are paying even in dollars. These people are able to school their kids from this low level of education to junior high school. They complete, and then when they are going to secondary school, for somebody like you say, for your child to, I'm going to pay your child's school fees. I thought the policy is meant to bring equity in the system, where the people below the poverty line are also given the opportunity to have their kids educated in the senior high school. So that wholesale actually brought this kind of mess in the system, and then this crash of corruption and mismanagement of public funds. In fact, we are in this country, and that is one of the reasons why NDC won this election. Look, people are watching this oral that NDC is trying to implement, they need to take it serious. I am not saying that they should go on wild goose chase to chase people just because people have personal, issues with them or whatever. They should use the appropriate channels, and when we do that, in fact, the revenue or the money that we shall even collect back alone can help us cover that particular 10 billion that data is showing that if we scrap the e-levy and the betting tax it will give us. So, bless, I agree. There are so many massive capital infrastructure expenditures that we have actually undertaken in this country without these two taxes, and we can do it. The only thing is that we have to deploy technology. We have to actually, clean up our tax collection institutions. There are a lot of corruptions there. Some of them even help, private sector or taxpayers to understate profits just so they can pay less taxes, and then they get some sort of goodies from them. We need to ensure that all these things or all these cleanups are done to ensure that there is efficiency in the system. And then yesterday, Dr. Tuforson also made a very good point. He cited what other countries are doing. Let's try to see if we can contextualize that one in our situation here. He alluded to the fact that in some countries, there is tax incentive where about 30% of what you are paying as tax is actually used as your pension. Can we do that here? We can actually try to gather information from around the world. What other countries are doing that is helping them or that are helping them to get more efficient in their revenue mobilization. And we stop this lazy way of every little thing we actually impose taxes. Okay, e-levy, for instance, for me, it's a no-no area, because as an economist, I look at financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is a very important aspect where we try to bring everybody into a state where we all operate a bank account or at least a mobile money account. This particular e-levy has discouraged a lot of people from having mobile money and then bank accounts. Again, it has also, for example, this quick loan, even quick loan. I was talking to a young guy. He did some work for me, and I wanted to pay. He said,
"Not this number.
Don't put it on this number.
Not this number. I can't surprise people again."
He said, "Oh no, I have a debt of about 500 cedis to pay, and I was supposed to pay him 600. So in case, assuming I pay it there, what happens? 500 of that is gone.
Yeah,
you understand?" And he was telling me that, "Doc, even the quick loan, when we are taking the quick loan." By the time it is credited to your Momo account, e-levy has been deducted.
It also attracts e-levy.
Yes, I can't understand. In fact, according to him,
it attracts. I think
I can't understand
sometimes.
Why. Which economics, have the principle that even loan is taxed. So it tells you that the government at that time was only looking for cheap and lazy ways of mobilizing resources just to make up for the inefficiencies and then the mismanagement in the public sector in terms of funds and all other things. So, bless. To conclude, I agree. Let's scrap them. It's not just about a campaign promise. If we scrap them, it will bring a lot of relief in the system, because some of these betting tax guys also send remittances to their loved ones in the villages apart from they surviving. So if it is scrapped, it will help, it will bring some relief in the system, and then we try to look for more innovative and then creative ways of raking in more revenue in terms of revenue mobilization. And then one last thing I will say is that it is important to bring the tool back, because the essence of the toll was to generate funds for road maintenance and road construction. I remember in the days when Bawumia and His Excellency Akufo-Addo were campaigning before 2016. One of the champion topics or topical issues of Dr. Bawumia was the fact that if you want to construct road, just toll the, collect tolls, and then you'll be able to construct. You don't need to go for loans. So it was a big mistake for them to even scrap that particular, toll kind of thing. So COVID, yesterday Dr. Tuforson did not talk about it, but I think the COVID levy has to be, if not scrapped, maybe we can use it as a tax for generating revenue to support the free SHS, since President Mahama is saying that he will not scrap it, but he will try to even extend it to cover the private schools. When that comes, there's also going to be a tension in terms of funding. So that one, I will not agree that we should scrap it. It has been there. Rather, we can add it as a percentage to get fund to help in funding the free SHS. And I think I will land here unless we come back. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Good morning to you all in the studio, and especially to Dr. Adomaku Kisi, the good man, as everybody normally attests to. I hope in the coming days they will rename the seat of government as Flagstaff House and not Jubilee House. Bilal, Lower McCarthy Hill. Okay, thank you for your message. Bless all NPP. All NPP MPs are afraid of Akufo-Addo and we're not telling him the truth. So where is his statue now? Where is his statue now? Okay, Stephen from Kwabinga. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to you, Bless, and good morning to your respected panelists, particularly Dr. Seidu Fita, Tolong Constituency Communications Officer. Mr. Bless, I think we all have heard what the Finance Minister designate responded to so intelligently the many questions asked about our economy and how he's going to turn things around to make it look better once more. Ghanaians have so much hope in the current government, and we in the NDC certainly believe that His Excellency President Mahama once again is going to deliver on his promises. By Ibrahim Adam from Nyankpala. Thank you, Ibrahim Adam. Good morning to you, Bless, and your guests. Please remind Dr. Seidu Fita that during the reign of former President Kufuor, the Tamale Assembly took tolls from students who had to ride bicycles to school. Some of us defied that and asked students not to pay. Some of us waited to be taken on. They were forced to abandon that idea. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this one here says that this is Gomez from Tamale. Good morning, Bless, and your able guests. It seems like President Mahama has so far assembled a team of highly qualified individuals to help drive Ghana's growth and development. In President Mahama, we trust. Okay, Sir Gomez, thank you. Good morning to you and your lovely guests, especially Dr. Seidu Fita. The New Patriotic Party experienced varying degrees of success in the 2016, 2020 and 2024 general elections. In 2016, the NPP secured victory in both the presidential and parliamentary elections. However, in 2020, the party struggled to maintain its dominance, with the parliamentary elections results being closely contested between the NPP and the NDC. In the 2024 general elections, the NDC gained a decisive victory, winning both the presidential and parliamentary elections. This shift in power led to NPP becoming the minority in parliament, with some referring to them as micro-minority under the leadership of Appenyo Markin. Yesterday, during the parliamentary vetting committee of President John Dramani Mahama's appointees, Appenyo Markin's behavior was called into question. His attitude was deemed unsuitable for a minority leader, and if left unchecked, could potentially harm the NPP's prospect in the 2028 general elections. Thank you very much. This one here also says, good morning, Pan-African TV. Please, Ghana has now gained independence again. We'll never return to handle our mother. We'll never return our mother Ghana to the NPP. Hello to Dr. Seidu Fita. Mustafa from Tamale sent this one. Thank you, Mustafa. Good morning, Bless. Please, can you get me Mr. Appenyo Markin's number? I'll be very pleased. For what? Okay, I'll read some two more. This one here says, good morning. Dr. Seidu Fita is good at communication. Seidu Inusa Jaminga, former SRC President, Jackson University College SMC member in the northern region. Okay, thank you. One last message, then we proceed to our next topic for conversation. We have some 24 minutes more. Good morning, Bless. Please ask Dr. Adomaku whether he and his presidential candidate, Dr. Baumia, were deceiving Ghanaians when they said they would do away with the e-levy That is why they were voted out. Okay. Thank you very much for your messages. Let's proceed to this last topic for conversation. It has got to do with the energy minister designate, Honorable Jinapo. Government will explore private participation in ECG. This is something that a section of the public is vehemently against, but we all cannot look past the fact that the Electricity Company of Ghana has been, to a large extent, inefficient, if that would be a right adjective to, to qualify their operations. They've incurred a lot of debt, and at this point, I know the SWA administration tried it with PDS. It was opposed. Even Rawlings tried it, I remember, privatization of ECG. But what we are hearing from the energy minister designate is that maybe some part of ECG, I don't know if it's the revenue collection, I don't know about that, but it appears that especially for some people, and even including myself, the fact that I work for this station and I believe in the ideals of this station, we do not support the privatization of state institutions. And so this is a position that we here at Pan African TV have taken in relation to this ECG matter. We do not support it. However, we accept divergent opinions. Let me start with you, Mr. Esofi, on this subject matter.
Okay, so Bless, I think there is a reason for having sectors or institutions that provide essential services to citizens are to be managed by government. It's because some of these services are essential, and they are more or less a basic necessity, citizens or people cannot do without. And so the main problem of ECG for me is not about distribution, but it's about the collection. Simply because over the years, people have been complaining that, I'm talking about the previous where they have to send bills, to homes to alert people of how much they have actually consumed and the associated kind of cost that they are supposed to pay. We spoke about it, and then it got to a point we say, okay, now let us bring prepay or prepaid meters. That should have been the gateway to actually curb these inefficiencies in terms of the collection of bills. But some way, somehow, as a country, we have failed in that regard, because again, I talk of corruption in institutions. The staff and the actors and the players within the Electricity Company of Ghana themselves are corporate. Bless, all of us here can agree that in this country there are people who are using electricity for free without paying. In fact, there are areas even within Accra here, electricity people have never stepped there. Especially the new sites. The well-to-do people who are moving in there go and pay them, and then they buy electric poles, they extend the stand there, and then if they need to get some transformer to serve the area, they go and pay. The electricity people come and mount it there, and then meters are just put there and nobody actually monitors. I tell people that they did that aspect, and I agree with part privatization, and that part should be the collection. If you give it to a private sector, every private sector is not a Father Christmas, and they don't care whether that thing is an essential service to you or not. They are looking for their profits, and so they will ensure that in terms of collection there will be some level of efficiency. If not 100%, at least we will achieve a greater percentage of efficiency in the collection. The same private sector, because they want to increase revenue in terms of collection, will see to it that illegal connections are actually curtailed. I believe that will also ease up the pressure from government in terms of solely handling everything, such that just the outgone government left and then the new one came. We realized that if care were not to be taken, we're going to be plunged into doom so once again. It's because government over the years have decided to hold everything to their shoulders. Already, I believe I stand to be corrected. There is some level of private sector, participation already when it comes to the generation, and then the distribution. Yes, and then the distribution. I think the area I agree with the Minister for Energy designate, Honorable Abu Jinapo, is some level of private participation, and I will advise or suggest that if we are going for that short, then it should be about the collection. For distribution, we don't have any problem, because the citizens themselves even help in the distribution. Once they need the light, they know what to do. So let's look at that particular aspect very well and ensure that we beef up efficiency. The lack of efficiency is also as a result of why we keep increasing electricity bills just to make up the losses. Again, it's a lazy man approach. If we are able to reduce the inefficiencies, curtail illegal connections in homes and in offices to the highest or to the optimal point, you will see that more revenue will be generated in such a way that we will even enjoy some level of economies of scale, where because we are raking in more, we are able to get relieved, to get, if not reduction, some level of stability for a long time for people to plan, rather than concentrating on the few that they are loyal to pay through the app, the ECG app, or if it is postpaid, they go and then go and make their payment, and then leave the chunk of people who are illegally enjoying the electricity, and then overburden the few who are paying genuinely with high electricity bills. So I think we have to take a critical look at that, and I would suggest that the national forum or dialogue that President Mahama has promised should also look at that side as well, in addition to our revenue mobilization that we just spoke about. These national dialogues that the president wants to organize to bring all stakeholders from all sorts of lives or all sorts of sectors and professions has to look at these essential areas: agriculture, our revenue mobilization, the energy sector, and then the free SHS, so that different ideas of how we can reduce inefficiencies and then increase efficiencies will be dispassionately discussed, advice offered to authorities in government, and we see how best we all get the better Ghana that we are looking for ourselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Kizi.
Yes.
Ghana's energy situation, the NPP has admonished government to stop the talk and walk it. Is it an inherited problem from your administration?
I think in the early days leading to the inauguration, the enormity of the task at hand in terms of Ghana's energy was dawning on the incoming administration, because of the inheritance of the title Doomsaw under the NDC administration, and the fact that politically the party that has been ascribed, or the man who wore the hat that energy sector was in disarray, or the man who became known as the father for light off, be it his contribution or his doing. Leonardo would be remembered for COVID as one of the things that happened around his time. For us Ghanaians, many of us.
But why would he be remembered for COVID?
Oh, whether for good or bad, that happened during his reign.
Okay.
And I'm just also stating that some will also remember John Dramani Mahama for that aspect of his presidency, whether it was his fault or not. It is what it is. So I think that his second coming or his return to power, that stigma would be something that he would want to do away with. And I know in his heart of hearts that he will do anything, everything possible to ensure that that dent to his image with regards to Dumso can be erased. And if there's a legacy that John Dramani Mahama wants to leave for Ghana, it won't be a legacy of Dumso, but how in his second tenure he finally solved this puzzle or this conundrum. Energy is no small beast. Energy will forever haunt any nation. As we speak, the Western Europeans are not joking with energy. So they who have had democracy and development for many years are even tinkering and struggling with whether renewable energy or not. And I think that we need to come to that reality that whether we like it or not, energy will be front and center of any government moving forward, be it renewable energy, sustainable energy, environmentally friendly energy. So I foresee that it will be very good for Ghanaians, one, to dialogue more, and then I'm happy that the NDC that was at some point not amendable to privatization is even talking or suggesting that, wait a minute, there's some level of private enterprise needed to really rekindle or solve this energy crisis. I'm biased towards privatization. I believe strongly in entrepreneurial work and privatization. And one of the people I literally study is Warren Buffett. And I can tell you on his portfolio, one of the major things on his portfolio is a private electricity producing company. I won't mention here, but that is how serious it is. So I am always for privatization when it's very good, and I think that in as much as government would wish to do a lot, your so government I say with privatization it will help. So he is preaching to the choir and they already converted, and I'm happy that at some point in time the narrative from the NDC fraternity was very much opposed to even the idea of privatizing whether the parking lot of ECG or the collection of revenue through a private enterprise. So I'm watching, and we'll watch them, and I think that I'm happy that they are not entangling themselves with a previous commitment of no privatization. And this paves way for the next MPP administration come 2028, God willing, to then broker further privatization of some portions of the energy sector. So Doc, one thing is certain, and I'm a numerical person. I can tell you without a doubt that we'll appreciate in our members of parliament numbers, without a doubt. This seemingly unfortunate scenario that happened to the MPP, largely due to self-infliction, will be corrected. And when that is corrected, just as you lended us, or you lent us, let me use appropriate English, you lend us hohoi for a period.
They could lend you Afadatu South or Ketu South.
And we have lent you Domi Kwabenya. The rising of Domi Kwabenya will come with the lifting of many of our traditionally owned seats to the MPP.
Right.
And that you can bet. We're talking about betting today. you can bet on it, and I think that that is for sure. We may not get maybe the presidency. That one is a different discussion. I don't know who the candidates are, but I can certainly say that
you'd appreciate.
We will appreciate
numbers of
in our numbers.
Right.
We will not clear all your 188. It's impossible, but you know, some
back like 30.
Some people will be disappointed in their MPs, not by virtue of the fact that the MPs did not perform, but by virtue of the situations we find ourselves in this country. The excitement, the expectations were very high, and they'll come to ground zero in a very short time, 6 months. 6 months. So I will state on this show that, one, we the MPP are on that spectrum of strongly supporting private enterprise. So I don't see us opposing, except for the fact that the contractual arrangement has to be very transparent and acceptable, so that should it arrive at the desk of the clerk in Parliament and then the minority leader, we can all peruse the document and be in agreement that, this is a reputable firm who is known for that job, and we know that they'll do a good job. And that is, in all fairness, one of the demands that I would have. But a lot of discussions and education of the general public is needed with regards to, one, having your lights on and having it off, and what it takes. And bless, let me say this here on TV that in October I was in England, and honestly speaking, I can almost say that 60% of the programs I watched were rather about engineering of cars, engineering of things. And please, let me tell the media houses, that 6-year-old who's watching TV and is watching how things are being engineered is more likely to become an engineer than herbalists, preachers that we are dosing our children with in this country. And from a developmental standpoint, if we truly wish to develop our nation and help our children aspire to be engineers and make things happen, we better change what we show on our TV stations. And for me, I was happy to put on the TV station and to watch things about how automobile industry came about, the engineering aspect. And even for me at my age, it was exciting, and I felt some passion for what engineering is about. We are here struggling with energy, and how many times do we even watch how Kwame Nkrumah did Valco, how Kwame Nkrumah did the Volta Akusombo Dam. we should be showing these things. Buidam is there. How many documentaries are on Buidam? Probably zero. But this is how the narrative gets all Ghanaians to now see that, hey, Mahama was talking about gas pipelines that will disrupt electricity to many of our places. What is a gas pipeline? Where is it? How does it look like? I mean, this is what will help us as a nation, without political coloration, that people truly appreciate. Hey, when we say you're an engineer at a dam, these are the things you go through. So this is a segue, but I think that the crisis we have requires that we confront it not with just prayers, which we do in this country too much, but confront it with hard sciences so that we can solve this.
Right.
And then look at renewable energy, and from an environmental standpoint, I think that in Ghana we've damaged our natural, resources too much. We need to be a bit green conscious.
Right.
Now that the nation is somewhat all green.
All green, right.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Dr. Fita, finally, kindly wrap up for us.
Bless. Politics is evolving in Ghana, and politics is no more a tradition but choices. Don't be surprised to one day see doctor's son or daughter contesting his seat as an NDC candidate. Don't be surprised. And the moment politics moves from tradition to choices, MPP will no more exist in Ghana.
Oh, I mean, before you proceed, before you proceed, I'm sure you know Bithia.
Yes, I know Bithia.
Bithia Benny.
Yes,
Benny.
Yes.
We are both doing the watching. This I should remind you that we're watching. So Benny is doing the watching.
Yes.
Bithia is doing the watching.
Their father is my friend.
Okay.
I mean, he friend to the late Rollins, their father. I mean, a Keda. So we share the same father.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Politics is changing, and doctors should appreciate that it is only the MPP that can go into an election, and you can count up to 3 regions and they will not have even a single seat. It has never happened to the NDC since 1992 till now. It has never happened to the NDC, where you step into an election and NDC come out with no seat in a region. It has never happened. So we are more nationalistic than the MPP. Today you can count regions, OT, Upper East, Upper West, and MPP, they can't even count a seat. But that has never happened to the NDC. So you should appreciate the fact that people are getting to know the kind of political party MPP is. They come, some of you will not benefit, but they come to do business. I know some of you who are realistic, you see, probably your party even fought you to lose. Maybe you were part of the 90 MPs who came out against. So when you're not ready for the business, they push you out. And I mean, only few people are in the MPP, the leadership, who are not in for business. A few of them. And the biggest mistake you have made, a serious political party would have revised and look at your appearance going into the next election and select your leadership. You made a very big mistake by even pushing Afenyo Markins, one arrogant person, to lead your micro minority in parliament. With such a smaller number in parliament, you would have needed a very sober person, someone very humble, who is ready for cooperation. You can't send Markins and expect him to bring more seats. Someone who damaged Central Region for you. What's his performance in Central Region?
That's a different discussion.
I mean, you understand? No, you brought it up.
It's a different discussion.
You brought it up.
That's a conversation.
We were discussing easy privatization. You brought in the issue of you coming back in 2028, and you gave reasons. And I'm giving you reasons why your party is dying, and it will take you time for you to recover, because you are not even able to identify what caused your defeat. Arrogance was the topmost of it all.
They've started that.
No, arrogance. I mean, why would you even select Michael Koku?
The approach is not even.
I mean, even though they selected into the committee, terrible.
The approach was
terrible. Even the hasty manner in which they formed the committee, they should have taken their time. And Nanado is still having his griefs of the party, and he is a bigger problem of the party. He is their problem. And if you are not able to deal with him, I mean, it means you are not ready to come back to power. Now, and I'll be happy anyways. If you are not back to power, I'll be happy. Listening to Honorable Jinapo yesterday, you realize that this is a man who knows his onions, a man who is ready to do the job. Dumso happened under former President Koku between 2004-2005. Popularly, it is low shedding, popularly known as Dumso. It happened under President Rawlings. It happened under former President Koku. It started around 2009 to 2011 when John Dramani Mahama was even a vice president, not a president. It became worse when he took over. And it became worse because he said he was not going to give a temporary solution to the problem. He wanted to provide a permanent solution to the problem. And Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is on record to have accepted the fact that John Dramani Mahama solved the problem, and he should not be praised for solving a problem he caused. He accepted the fact that it was solved, but he came with a propaganda. Now, Honorable Jinapo, he pointed two things: efficiency and revenue collection. And he talked about forming a committee to come together to look at the realization and pick an option to either go for the concession model or full privatization. And the concession model is one that where we already have the IPPs, who are the private partners in energy sector. I think we have to get to a point where we become practical as Ghanaians, and that is where Doctor started from. We are more theoretical than being practical. The poor seems to pay for electricity more in Ghana than the rich. Reason: the rich man will build his house and wall it. When he's doing illegal connection, you can't notice it. But the moment the poor person does that, you pass and you see the bypass. You detect the problem and you start harassing the poor people. Check. Most of the time when you have problem between ECG and a customer, it is ECG against a poor person. You won't find them in any minister's house to check whether their meter is reading well or not. You won't find them.
Right.
If Monab is going to be fair with us, throughout his tenure in office, I'm not sure ECG will even come and visit his house. They won't. But they patronize my house like a chopper. They do, because my house is not even walled. So it is easy to have access to my house. Now when you, for example, when you come to Accra, most of the big people, their houses are walled. ECG will not even get access to their houses to know whether they are on illegal or they pay their light bill. We have to find a way of recouping revenue from people who use electricity.
We are putting the meters outside.
I mean, people still find a way.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
And even the meters they are putting outside, when you even go back to the rural areas, that is where you find most of it. But in the urban areas still, the meters are indoors.
Right.
So I think that we have to get practical,
right,
so that we'll be able to solve this problem. How can a private person do better than a whole government?
Yeah.
Sometimes it baffles my mind.
Right.
I think as a state we need to wake up to solve this problem for once.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Seydou Fita. Thank you, Dr. Adumaku Kisi. Thank you, Mr. Esilfi. It's been a pleasure having you on the show for the very first time today. We hope that today won't be the last. And to our cherished viewers, thank you so much for your time. I'll see you same time tomorrow on the newspaper review segment of Good Morning Africa. Bye.